Bring the horns in. You know what this is. Money get strong. Money get strong. Hey, and this your boy OG. And this your boy OG. It's a boy in style. Let's go this way. 9 to the 6. The mother French driver, they can't do it like this. They walk like this, walking out like this. They train like this. It's the grip, it's the clips for that. Black, and gold. These silver folk, the word became so cold. You already know it's the A5A. Turn the manners round backwards to say A5A. Hey. And I ain't even skating. Better call security if you wanna let them apes in. You're half a banana. No one to the sign while I'm waving the banner. And I don't care about the letters, it doesn't matter. Your organization was founded after my chapter. No boy, I can get that life membership. Is it the Omega chapter? I can still repping that. All the bros in the place, raise your pinky and your thumbs on the mother group. Sit down, we the first ones counting in that 1-9 to that 06. All the mother rats behind, we keep them hopeless. Yeah, man, who wrote this? Me, man, who wrote this? I'ma have to say ice, get that ass when I'm rich. We them A5 guys, also known as fly guys. Everybody look at us when that train ride by. We something like the Polish brothers in the school. Give them boys a glass of water and we turn them into ice cubes. Always make the right move. Scholars to doctors and lawyers, all the way to principals and higher schools. Hoppers don't pass, you see the boys talking out. After the song, the leader girls talk about it. Damn girl, you never seen a bruh setting out. Giving women crossfight before the club playing out. Yeah. It's that black and no tricks. You already know. Man, tricks. Off the entertainment. Number tricks. Tricks. 100 years. Tricks. It's that 1-5-8. They're breaking tricks. Tricks. It's that 8-5-8. It's that 8-5-8. Who you with? Tricks. 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 Know to sign up. Tricks. The X is out the tricks. Let me tell you where I'm from. Alpha 5, yep. Fucking journey through the War City, 1927. Let's let it ride out. Let it ride out.
Yo. So good evening. I want to thank you all for joining us for the latest installment of episode 4 of the Final Hour. We are the Alpha Psi Lambda chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, hashtag Capital City Alphas. And today we're going to be discussing a relatively controversial topic. We're going to be talking about the use of the B word and the N word. So to establish some context, is there anyone on this panel who does not know what I mean when I say the B or N word? So everybody knows what B and N stand for, right? So we okay, we good. All right, and we're really going to dive into the use and in some cases the misuse of the word, and also talk about its societal implications. So I think it's going to be a relatively interesting topic, and I wanted to make sure that we had a pretty balanced panel. And by balance, I know there are more men than women on the panel, but we have a demographic of people who I think have experience using both words, whether it be in a as a using the word as a term of endearment or not so much. So, but not giving too much away, we'll go ahead and discuss it, and I'll go ahead and allow our guests to introduce themselves. So, guys, go ahead and take it away.
Hi everyone, my name is Victoria Moultrie. I don't have a long introduction. I'm also a writer, and you can follow my Instagram at always underscore with love underscore Tori on IG.
Y'all see them braids, right? It's like she just got off the flight from Africa. Like she just came right in after getting her hair freshly braided. So, hey,
Don't do
sorry
me
to call you out.
don't do me
Sorry,
when
sorry,
we live.
sorry to call you out, Vic. And Vic's a little shy, but she's also a member of Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated. So I'll go ahead and throw that plug in for you, Vic.
Hi, I'm LaShawn, and I work for the school district, and I also have my own cosmetics line called Kayla Chloe that I named after my daughters. We support organizations we give a proceed to organizations that support girls and women who have been victims of sexual assault and abuse. So that's about it.
All right, good stuff. And we lost D Rich for a minute, so we'll get him when he comes back. But Brother Eds, go ahead and take it away.
Well, I'm Joseph Edge. I actually live in Jacksonville, Florida. I serve as founding pastor of Zion Temple Christian Church. I am a former educator of multiple years. But one thing I bring to this panel tonight, I pastor in the hood, okay? And I have 8 sisters. So this conversation, because Victoria was about to go there with you. I saw that little braid in the middle of her hair, like it got thick for a minute, But, yeah. Well, I'm a low-key comedian too, so that's who I am.
All right, good stuff. D Rich, I know we lost you for a second, but go ahead and tell everybody who you are.
Oh, okay. I apologize. I'm having some technical difficulties. I don't know if y'all hear me out there. But my name is David, last name Richardson. But my nickname for all those people who cool me call me D Rich. I definitely have, I guess, a more professional side to me. They call me D Rich, the life coach, the head life coach at the first 21 days. And then what I am getting money from right now is slinging burgers. I have a food trailer called the Dirty V. I have some of the best burgers that are out there on the street right now. So definitely come check us out. And I was thinking, why would I get the invite to this call? But then I remembered that me and Hook used to have the same job, and it was a lot of potty mouths in there, and I probably had one of the pottiest of the mouths. So I'm here, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for having me, and let's get this show rocking.
Yes, sir. The good old days. All right, Brother Chambers, bring us on.
My name is Ed Chambers. I'm a high school English teacher in Columbia, South Carolina, and not a whole lot to say. Just glad to be here, and glad to get a chance to hear other people's thoughts and ideas about these two words.
All right, good stuff. And again, I appreciate you guys taking time out of your busy schedule to join us. I promise you, I will not keep you all night, but we'll go ahead and get this thing started. So, to establish even further context, we've already established that everybody knows what the B word and the N word means. So, and being completely transparent, do any of you either now or in the past have you used the word yourselves? Either word. Either or both. Let's give us some discussion behind that. So we got some. So that's a yes for everybody. So everyone's either said it, both words or just one word. Like
Oh, both.
Now, have you guys said it in in an inflammatory way, or have you said it actually as a term of endearment? Like, how does that work?
Any which way but loose.
I know for me, and it's funny because I never use the word towards women, but when men are doing some things that, no offense, ladies, but that come across typically as kind of female, stop acting like a bee.
I have to say that I don't say it like that, but if I really want,
I guess
if
I'm a
I'm
break.
really angry and I want to make a man feel like maybe bad, like he made me feel, I might say something like BAN. Y'all can fill in,
So she can
fill
buy,
it
she can
in,
buy
but
both of them.
it's just all the bad words, all three in a row. But I mean, I've used it in a bad way, but never towards women.
Well, that's how we used to refer to my sisters. We would greet each other. Hey, B. You know, as terms of endearment. But even from an inflammatory perspective, those words, could come out from time to time, but just never towards a woman to denigrate her. Now, if she came at me, because my mother was the cussologist. If she came at me the wrong way, now, yeah, I would pop one at her too, but.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
would definitely use both words. Especially with the N word right now, referencing these boys, I'll say, are acting real. These N words is acting real reckless these days. And also with the B word, for me, usually it is a term of endearment, but also with close friends that I know, because you just can't go around just saying the B word to a female because she might take that the wrong way because I don't know her and she don't know me. But I am trying to use it less often, especially when I'm mad and talking about another female, and just be like, Lord, she's not a B. I don't know her, so I can't say that. So it's just reining it in a little bit as you get older. And, yeah.
What about you, David?
I don't use the word. I don't use the words now. In my current grown man state of life, I recognize when you had hit me up and asked me if I would come to the podcast. I was like, wow, I haven't said nigga and bitch in a long time. And that's right, I said it because everybody's dancing around the words, right? So I'm going to say it. Yes, I've used the word nigga and bitch like I have used the words in the past, fuck and shit. They have such a versatile way in which it can be used. I can be like, yo, that's my nigga. Like, yo, what up, homie? Well, I could be like, yo, that's a bitch ass nigga. She said it earlier, right? So it can be used and me celebrating them, or it can be used me talking trash. You know what I mean? I can be like, yo, that's a bad bitch. You see Shorty just now? All right. I'll be like, oh man, that bitch get on my last nerves, right? She's driving me insane, right? I want to thank God for growth and where I'm at in my life right now. I want to thank and praise Jesus Christ, who's the head of my life, to be able to remove these words from out of my vocabulary, because I was a habitual outlier in the past with the usage of the words bitch and nigga. Yes. It was me.
D Rich, we appreciate and he exits stage left. He'll probably be back though. But and I appreciate the transparency and I'll be honest, like for me personally, nigga, I still use it. Like it's a part of my vocab. Like it's it's never in a fashion where like an inflammatory way. It's simply, hey, that's my, or we just as a term of endearment. The other word, bitch, I haven't used that honestly probably since college. And growing up, the way that I was raised, it was a common word, especially when dealing with a woman. If you're trying to get a woman's attention and she's like, not interested, that's like our go-to. But now that I have daughters too, I look at life a little differently now, and that's not something that I would say to any woman. I don't care how mad I get, how upset I get. I'm not going to say that to a woman. And now, towards the man, I may say it if I think that something he did is, if it's a bitch move or whatever the case is, that's something I may use. But towards women, I really don't. So that's like David said. Thank God for growth. Now that does lead me to my next question. Now, we talked about, and I think David pretty much already established that he doesn't really use it anymore. But for the rest of you guys, do you still? I know you have used them in the past, but do you still use them now? And if you do use them, why do you continue to use them? And for those who do not use them, what made you stop doing it altogether? So take it away.
I still use them now. Bitch, not so often. Again, like I said in the beginning, unless I'm trying to like kind of stick it to a man, which is kind of disrespectful. But if I'm taken to like that level to even want to disrespect a human, I want to disrespect them as good as possible. At the best I could do it, I would say. So for a man don't want to be called that, you know what I mean? So that's why. But other than that, like as far as my friends or anything, like we wouldn't say bitch. We might say bish, like bish, anything like close to it, kind of, to as a term of endearment towards each other. The N word, yeah, if I'm singing songs or it was just kind of like, okay, growing up, and all of us used it, and it was never derogatory towards one another because we're all Black, and I never saw it as not okay to use coming from another Black person. I had a coworker who was not African American, and one time her and my other non-African American coworker were saying it to each other, but kind of like had gotten just like too comfortable around me and thought it was okay because they were trying to use it as a term of endearment towards each other, but that wasn't cool with me. So I still use them though. Yes.
I think, as we consider the English language, we have the ELA teacher on here. I started out in education at ELA, by the way, but I ended up in math and science. I think, when we look at the English language as it has evolved, in many instances, we say that these terms are used as terms of endearment, but then too, these terms are also used as colloquialisms, the nigger, the nigger is what we consider the Nigger is the term of disrespect. However, the Nigga or the Nigguh, whatever you change, just take that ER off and affix, whatever, you want on the end of that somehow that makes that all right among us or among our sphere of influence. One of the things I used to always tell my students is that the expletives oftentimes indicate a limited vocabulary. That was my way of just trying to discourage them from cussing. But when I moved from South Carolina to Jacksonville, Florida, and I was thrown, I literally came out of the lion's den into the fiery furnace. And I know in the scripture, the furnace happens before the lion's den. Listen, oh my God, it was even worse. But it's amazing how we can even compartmentalize these terminologies. They're, as he said, I have two daughters, and I would probably blow a head gasket, if I heard someone refer to my daughter as that, or even my wife. Listen, y'all put something on my book, Reb, won't be here this Sunday. I'll be preaching in jailhouse. I'm just straight as I'm just straight up. I'm not a carnal Christian, but at the same time, I understand that every man has limits. I think that if a good practice is, if the N word has been so offensive to us as a people, because anybody only but black people, has been so offensive to us, why do we continue to use that word to each other as an endearment? But yet, if someone of the other race says it to us, we get highly offended, and that really makes us hypocrites. Who's it? LaShawn was saying that the two non-African Americans were using that word, but yet you walk and say nigga. We can say that word as if it just rolls off just so comfortably. But then we're offended when someone else says it. Why is there not an offense when someone of our own race uses that? One of the things that I've said to my daughter down through the years, we have to be real careful because too many of our people have died behind this word. Too many of our predecessors have been offended that have made such great contributions to our society. But yet, when the word was used to them, they didn't use it as a stumbling block. They use it as a fueling mechanism. That didn't stop them contributing what God put in them to contribute to society. I'm going to back out a little bit because, from a pastoral perspective, I told y'all I pastor in the hood. So these are words that I hear all the time around the church, outside the church. But yeah, it doesn't make my skin cringe, because, hey, what would Jesus do? Would Jesus turn his nose up because they cuss? After you done preach, what you gonna do if someone walk out the church and say, damn, they just gave their life to Jesus and walk out and stumble and say, damn, are you gonna just throw them in hell? No, people have to grow to that place, and we have to be patient with them.
For me, I'm from Detroit, went to college in Little Rock, Arkansas. And I got this camera for graduation. And there's a Shell station a couple of blocks away from the school. And so I go in there and open at the back of the camera, reading what type of film to buy for the camera. And all of a sudden, I hear sirens. And there's the white clerk in the store. The police come in, and the clerk says, this N is in here trying to steal some film. All of a sudden, that word became so totally different for me, where I'm 53 and I can count on, maybe 10 times since that day, I've used that word. Because all of a sudden, again, like we talk about, hey, everybody in Detroit calling each other N's, but I had never been called an N by anybody else. And the crazy part about it wasn't just the fact that, like we talk about, like you're just talking about, Brother Edge, the and the ah. No, she had the It wasn't an she had the
Mm.
And so since then, it really has just been this thing where I tell people, if you can't call me by my name, don't call me that. And so for me, that was just one of those. I really will say, like, it was a life-changing moment because I will snatch a kid up in a minute if they use the word. They know that, hey, you can say a bunch of stuff in that class, but you better not say that N word. And I teach high school, and so it's actually really interesting because they're so used to saying it all the time. Like I swear to God, I almost killed this kid a couple of years ago before COVID. He was doing something, and I asked him to stop, and he looked at his friend and he said, "Who is this N talking to?" You talk about kids like, oh shit, it's about to happen in this room right now. And I remain calm. And I'm like, excuse me, sir, are you talking to me? And he backed down. But that's just how I am about that word. Like, and I tell them, my friends don't call me that. And if my black friends don't call me that, some kid is not gonna call me that. And Brother Edge is funny because I used to live in Orlando, and the first time I heard somebody Puerto Rican and him and his black kid just walking through the hall, what's up, man? Man, that N gave me all that homework to do. Man, that N crazy. And I'm just like, what the hell is going on with these Puerto Rican kids and these black kids? And it's even crazier. Has anybody seen that video that went viral where this white kid and his father are in the bathroom fighting, and the white kid punches his father, and he's like, "What's up, N? What's up, N? What you want now? What you want now?" And the white kid is fighting his father, calling him an N. And again, it wasn't the it was the And that's just how far we've come. And that's how come I'm like, okay, you can say it's a term of endearment. But for me, in my experience, like that one event totally changed the way I see the word. B is a different story.
Hey, Hook, I would like to know, how did that story play out in the store?
When they saw that I hadn't opened up any canisters of film or done anything, they let me go. But just that walk back to school, man, I don't and like just that thought of I've never been called to N by anybody white in my life. And yet just that one experience is like, yo, like she didn't say this boy, she didn't say this young man. She immediately jumped to N. And that was just kind of like, is that how she saw me? I'm down here trying to get a college degree. But she saw me as an N. She didn't see me as a college student. I was an N to her. And I just, how many other people saw me as just an N?
Vicky, David, what about y'all?
I can go. As far like I mentioned earlier, I do still use both words in very particular settings just because we are all professionals and we do, especially with my job, work around a lot of different people and I meet different people. So I'm very cognizant of not using the N word around even when I meet other Black people while on my travels. Is something that doesn't come in my vocabulary whatsoever because I know everyone doesn't respond to that word in the same way, whether it's the nigga or nigger. Like, I don't use it because people are going to respond differently. And people have, even in the Black community, people have different perspectives of it. So just trying to be cognizant and respectful of people when you are around them. And just being professional, like, I don't want anyone to feel like of other race or anybody to feel like they can just be saying it around me whatsoever because if the wrong person say it, I'm gonna react. So that's just how it is. I don't really have a clear answer to that question. I don't really see it as being hypocritical, but that's just kind of like my opinion. I just want to say that it's just among the community, but still, even among the community, you need to be cognizant of your audience and who you are saying it to. When it comes to the B word, again, very particular settings, very close friends is who I would say that to. And it's just kind of like, bitch, what? Like, what happened? Like, so it's kind of like that. So in that setting, it's a very particular people because again, you don't know how people respond. And even with that, it's like it can be misinterpreted in so many ways. It's like, no, she said bitch in a very disrespectful way. So it's on and popping. And no, I'm not about that life. So it's just being aware that everybody doesn't respond to things in the same way when you do choose to use those words. And again, just because Black professional, I just don't use it around certain people. And it's just, yeah, I would say I'm at that point where close set of friends, I am going to use those particular words. But outside of that, I try not to do it because, again, if I see children, I'm not a teacher or anything. I'm not around kids a whole lot except for the kids in my vicinity. So it's like if I hear them saying it, yes, it's gonna be a problem. So you do have to lead by example and be
Yeah.
cognizant of what you're saying because they listen to everything and they hear everything as well. So it's like let me set an example because y'all little ears just kind of be perking up when we be talking. So I am trying to do better as I get older. So, they're just not out here just saying it like you had that particular instance. So, yeah.
Absolutely. What about you, D. Rich? I think you're muted.
Ever
Oh, there
since
you go.
then, I've been having technical difficulties. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we can
Am
hear
I
you now.
in?
Yep.
No, can't hear me. No response.
Yes.
Hallelujah. I want to repent. Let's start there, because when I use those ill-advised words, I've been having technology issues ever since then. Been getting kicked off the show and have not been able to respond intelligently to any of these wonderful questions by our host, Mr. Hook. So I'm gonna go back to when I stopped using the word. I was, I got deep in the Hotep, African spirituality, right? And started studying etymology and looking at the structure of words or the base of words. And then I ran across a word called niggas, right? Which meant king. And I was like, well, if it means king, in my mind, especially with being down south and hearing the words so much, what if every time I heard the word, I automatically start processing that in my mind as I'm a king? And if they said, you know what I'm saying, in a form of putting me down, but that's okay. Not all kings are alike in the midst of the kingdom, but somebody has to rule, right? So that's kind of my little backstory of reprogramming myself to not use the word. And before you know it, it was absent from my vocabulary. As I mentioned before, I haven't used it in so long. I mean, both the N word and the B word can be used in very horrible, disgusting ways, right? That can offend anybody from any race. So I tried my best not to use it, right? But at the same time, I'm in a place now where I'm not offended if someone uses it towards me. I got kids, man, and so I got a lot to live for than trying to defend myself if somebody says the N word or the B word, because at the end of the day, that doesn't pay my bills, right? That doesn't.
D Rich got to upgrade. You got to get that cricket. Got to get rid of that cricket phone. Is Hook frozen?
We are having all sorts of technical difficulties.
Yeah.
Listen, I remember the first time the student used it. Got to school and he was late. And the first school I worked at in South Carolina was in Bennettsville, South Carolina. I don't know if y'all know where that
I know
is.
what that is, yeah.
Okay. And so the student body was comprised of African Americans and mostly Native Americans.
Wow.
And so the whites were really the majority, the minority. And so, he came in, I kind of adopted him like a son. I said, well, son, what's wrong? Because he looked obviously distraught. And I said, well, what's wrong? He said, my mom, old man, jumped on her. And I said, well, what you do? He said, I beat that nigga 8. So he looks white. But when he said that, my eyes almost came out on stems, and I said, boy, you can't say that.
And it's so funny too. And it's funny because like, again, I call men B all the time. I swear I do. And I remember one time sitting in class, door open, and this girl walked past and she just yelled into the classroom, yeah, bitch, I fucked your man. And it was on and popping after that. But when you think about, like, she could have just came in and said, yeah, I fucked your man. And of course they still fight. But I think she threw that bitch in there, and before that bitch in there, all of a sudden, it's not just about you fucking my man. You're disrespecting me too.
It's personal.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and I think that's. Go ahead, Lisha. Go ahead.
Are you ready? I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead, Victoria. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna bring like the other side of the B word and also why just being cognizant of using it with my friends, because I also find it extremely disrespectful when men use the B word towards women. So just making sure I am not creating an environment where they feel like it's okay because we're joking around and stuff like that, and they feel like, oh, what's up? No, it's not. And it's never gonna be okay with me with that, no matter if you're joking or if you're being serious. So I think that's the other side of the B word as well. I have been called a B word when declining offers when people get mad. So for me, that is BNA behavior. If you BNA behavior when they do that.
Right.
So it's just
But
when
honestly, like from my standpoint with that, and here's my thing: like men know that if we refer to a woman as a B word, we know it's meant to be, disrespectful and insulting. We know that. So regardless of what you and your friends say, you may say that to each other. Every man knows, every man should have been taught. That's just simply something you don't say, no matter how many times women say it. And I was raised by women, and they say the B word to each other all the time, But I don't go in, even if I'm joking, I don't go in and I don't use the B word with them. Same thing with the N word. I may say it to my friends or whatever. Like I look like I got a big family, right? So my thing is like I can talk about my family, but you can't. So because I'm black, I can say the N word, but that don't mean you can say it. Now, what I will say though, I am very particular about who I use the word around. I would never say it around people outside of the black community because I don't want them thinking. For one, I don't want them looking at me like I'm ignorant because my vocabulary is too expansive to relegate myself to just that one word when I'm in front of outside company. So, I don't want them to think that. And two, it's one of those things where I even have black family members who don't like the use of the word. They don't like when people say they don't like, when people use the N word, and I'm extremely careful not to say it around them.
Um, as far as like the B word, well, I guess like certain things are also like double standards when it comes to a word like that because my daughter has a close group of friends. She just turned 16 in April, and two of them are boys, and then the other one, two, three, four of them are girls. So I every once in a while she'll show me stuff in her phone or she'll be showing me their text and we'll be laughing. And it's been twice now that I saw where one of the boys has called her or one of the other girls the B word jokingly or, what seems to be okay with them, but it pisses me off because I feel like I don't care if he's joking or not. I told her, you don't ever let a man call you that. I don't care if he's joking or not. And I told her, I've seen it twice and I work at the school. So he goes to the school. They all go to the school. And if I see it one more time, I've given her fair warning to tell him herself. But if I ever see it again, I'm going to say something to him because you better go like play with one of your cousins or somebody at your house, but don't call my daughter that. I don't care if y'all playing around or how close y'all are. Like to me, it's never okay coming from a man. And I don't care who he is.
Brother Hook, may I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
And I guess like I'm hearing the conversation, and it's actually really interesting because like there seems to be this line down the middle where a man can't call a woman a B, but it's kind of like we've set some parameters, like there's some lines drawn in the sand for N. And I'm just curious, why do you think we've done that? We just said, okay, it doesn't matter whether you're black or white, Hispanic. No man should call a woman a B. But again, if you're a dark skinned Dominican and you're walking down the street and you call another black person an N, nobody's gonna think anything about it because hey, you're a dark skinned Dominican.
I think by definition, I think people try to resort to the actual definition in that regards. Anybody can be an N, but anybody can't be a B. you know. You know, because if you get called that B word, you done step across the line and you got everything that you deserve. I tell you no lie. We were playing cards, and my wife, I don't know if my wife and I, no, me and one of my good friends were partners, and my wife and her mom were playing, and he threw out, pow, and he had an ace, and she cut his ace, you know, literally cut his ace. And he said, because he was counting on that book, and he said, "Ooh, I almost call you a big," you know, because that took him by surprise. And I say, "Fool," I said, "That's the only time I let you slide because you had counted that one, you know, because that wasn't in that game of spades, you know, it was like anything goes. But if it was outside the parameters of that, you know, we go into blows. You know what I mean?" I don't know. Maybe I might be the last person to be talking about this. You know, y'all got the preacher up here talk about it. It's okay to call somebody a B. No, I'm not saying that. They put that disclaimer out there. But you know, she did cut his ace.
So why do you guys think that like with these words? Because you know we hear them a lot. You know, when females are talking to females, that they're using the B word. When young men are talking to young black men are talking to their peers, they're using the N word. So why do you think that these words are so popular nowadays? Like there are a lot of other words we can use, but why these particular words? Why do you guys think that?
I think because of the culture, maybe, that most young Black people, or you know, people our age or younger, have embraced. I think hip hop has a lot to do with it. I mean, I'm not saying that it's in a negative way. I'm just saying that it's in a more accepted way. It became okay to use the words. and yeah, I agree. When you said like only in spades, it's kind of like, you know, anything kind of does go. So let me just go ahead and put that out there. But I just think that it just became a lot more acceptable, because even when I was younger, I refused to accept being called the B word, and I still don't. But yet I can sing a Beyonce song, and you know, and on the part where she say, I got every reason to feel like I'm that bitch, I say it and I feel like I'm like I don't know, like kind of like empowered, because that's the way she meant it when she said it, right? So who would ever think that a person who finds a word like that more offensive than almost any other, would be okay using it and singing it and calling myself a bitch when I'm singing a Beyonce. So I think that like certain things have made those words more popular and more accepted, and it just continues with the younger people.
Okay.
I agree with you on it. It's part of the culture, really. Just being normalized in certain settings, with our music, um, just how we communicate with each other. I will say from earlier comments, it does depend on the background that you come from as well, because everyone isn't raised the same way. And I know you all stated that, you know, y'all grew up around females and that was something that you were taught to never do. But some people, that's not the same case. And for them, they gonna call you a bitch all day, every day, because that's what they did. And it don't matter to them. So they don't take it offensively, or they're not saying it offensively sometimes, but it's just like, I just be calling girls bitches. And it is I'm like, we just need to do, but again, we're not all raised the same way, so that's something to keep in mind. I will also say with those certain words, changing the meaning, I don't know like the right words to say, like you were saying, like in a Beyonce song, just taking the word and making it something empowering, because you know many female hip hop artists like Megan Thee Stallion made the song bitch and all those things. So it's just taking the power away from the word in some of those instances when it comes to females using it. But you know, there are gonna always be double standards and it's gonna be lines to it. So it's like you just need to realize where you stand with it and don't give mixed signals as far as how you are want it to be used and how you want it to be used with you, I want to say, because you kind of teach people how to treat you. So if you always talking like letting people call you in, and then some people don't think it's okay. So you got to keep that in mind as well.
Right.
Well, I made it back. Apologize. God kicked me off again. So, but I know I probably missed most of the conversation. But here's, like kind of like some of my final thoughts with the N word and B word, just as our community as a whole. And I heard some of you guys kind of touch on it, especially you just now, Victoria, right? I think in order for us to get better as a community, we have to stop celebrating things that downgrade us as a community, right? It's embedded in our music. It's embedded in our conversations, right? And these trigger words definitely still trigger us. So it's a source of pain for a lot of us. How can you heal from this painful state in order for us to be able to move forward and growth? But at the same time, when we turn on our music, right, we're listening to it, and when they use the words, they're not using it in an uplifting way. It's definitely being used in a way that's downgrading, or like I've seen when our panelists today share. It's a conversation, amongst 16-year-olds, right, that's taking place, and how some of the boys, nowadays don't understand that blur line. They don't look at it as a gray area. They feel like, well, if it's okay for her, it's okay for me, right? And it's the same thing when it comes to, other races. When they look at it like, well, it's okay for them to use, then it's okay for me. So, why do we continue to defend the use of the words? I guess is, my question. Why do we have to accept it if it's in 1 minute we're going to say, well, I use it to uplift my people, but in the next minute we say, well, I'm offended when someone of the opposite sex or the opposite race actually use it, right? So that alone lets you know that this could be, something wrong with these words in general. And if there's something wrong with these words in general, then how do we uplift and move past it? Because we know why it's being recycled, right? It's what's shared commonly in the media. And what's shared commonly in the media impacts the way we think, the way we dress, the way we behave, the way we act, right? And we see that, in our schools, in our neighborhoods, in our places of worship. We see that with our kids. And, some of us cringe as parents and say, hey, do I really want this to be the life for my child? Not understanding these gray areas and these blurred lines, and then having to teach them the gray areas and blurred lines of like, well, here's where you can use the word and here's where you can't. Well, they don't understand that because it's all over. It's all over social media. And, famous words of Hook before we got started, B asterisk TCH, right? Or whether we make the nigga with an A at the end, or we use the ER at the end, or the UH, or niggas, and say, well, I'm going to go into African spirituality and I'm going to feel great about myself now. At one point, I guess, at what point do we all say collectively as a group, when do we bury these words and kind of grow up? Or is growing up accepting these words, right? And if I'm accepting these words, that means that I have to put my big girl and my big boy pants on. And I got to say, I understand that these words, like any other cuss word that's out there, could be used good and it can be used bad. But because I participate in it, my participation says that I am okay whether or not it's being used good or bad. So I can't glorify it in 1 minute and then want to fight you the next. It's just my stance on it. I could be wrong. It's just my personal opinion.
I think what D.
Keyword
Rich
is
has said
punishment for the audience out there.
I think what D. Rich has said is very powerful because he made the statement. He said we've got to learn how to make better contributions, and not just as African Americans, but just as human beings. But the question here that should be asked is, well, if we're to make those better contributions, well, who is it that this younger generation in this up and rising culture, who is it that they can respect? Because in many instances, they're not respecting the church, because in many instances, when these teenagers are getting to an age of the quote unquote age of being grown, 18, they are abandoning the church. They're abandoning sound reason, sound proven wisdom, almost to say to the older generation, I want to prove to you that you are wrong. And the reality of it is, we can never take a wrong and make that wrong to be right. And I'm not trying to preach, but that's just who I am. In the book of James, chapter 3, James writes this statement. He says, for in many things we offend all. He said, but if any man offend not in word, the same is a perfect man, and also able to bridle the whole body. Now, perfect doesn't mean without blame in that King James English. It means a mature man. You know, there are things that we have done that have offended others. There are things that we will do that will offend others. But at the same time, when we come to a place where we are consciously aware that we are doing something wrong, that we should make the conscious decision to rectify that wrong, to rectify what it is that we feel like is going off course. Because in many instances, now I can only talk for me. In many instances where I have crossed that line many years ago, when I was beginning to cross that line, there was almost something like stood up on the back of my neck, the hair, like, you know you're wrong for what you're getting ready to do. You know you ain't got no business getting ready to say what you're getting ready to say. And then, of course, I got saved at a young age. I got saved at 16. I ain't been perfect, you know, and I'm, 46 now. But I haven't been perfect from 16 to 46, because there have been some failures that I have made. But there have also been some places where I have made conscious decisions that there are certain things that I will not do. There are certain things that I will not say. There are certain places I will not go. And if we're going to make a difference, if we want the world to take us seriously, we've got to stop being the joke.
Can I say something?
One last.
No, go ahead, LaShawn.
I agree with a lot of what you said. But I guess I grew up the daughter of a pastor. Let me say that. I grew up in church. I got saved at a very young age. And I went to church up until I went to a Christian school where I had to go to chapel to get credits to graduate, right? And I was very much in the mind space that you're in now when I was young. I felt like there were certain words and things that where I drew very, very strict lines. Like, you should not say the B word. A man should not say the B word to me. A woman should not say the B word to me, right? As far as the N word, I don't ever like use that word in a derogatory way towards anybody, or I'm not even like the type of person that says what's up in like to another person. It's just more like if I'm reading something, or if it's a joke, or if it's kind of like just, being said in that manner. But I guess the reason I just wanted to kind of like respond to what you said is because I think like where you are now is where I was then. And as I've gotten older, I don't see it as not being mature by using those words, I guess. And I don't see it as making me like more or less of a Christian or closer to God, as I feel like because we're human, we kind of like the things like we say, they're terms of endearment. We only use them in certain settings and certain environments and things like that. No, I'm not running around saying the B word or the N word all over the place. But at the same time, I feel like if it's something that I want to let come out of my mouth, I'm not gonna like be ashamed to let it flow. I don't know if that makes any sense or not, but I feel like if it's something I want to use, and I guess I'm just not as uptight. I guess I've just gotten older. I guess as the older I've gotten, I just say what I want to say and do what I want to do. And I would never like disrespect anyone by using those words, knowing that it would be disrespectful to them. But I'm not going to say that I'll never use them again because they're bad.
Well, may I?
Yeah.
May I respond? Well,
Yes, sir.
I'm not saying that, you know, you're not saved, or, you know, or even in a bad headspace, or even in immature. Just saying, if we understand that we are the hand that shapes the world, then if we can superimpose those boundaries on within the parameters of the B and the N word among ourselves, you know, of how we use and compartmentalize it. We say, you know, well, I will not say this to a woman. I will not say this to a man. I will not say this to an African-American child. If we can superimpose those boundaries for others, where are the boundaries that we set for ourselves? You know, that goes into Proverbs 25:8, which says that he that have no rule over his own spirit is like a city whose walls are broken down. You know, if we have no control over what we say or do, we have become defenseless, and we have become vulnerable in that moment. But also, you know, even as an adult. Now, I'm just saying from a scriptural, you know, because I'm in the business of shaping lives. Proverbs 29:11 says, just because I'm grown, I can't say what I want to say, because the scripture says in Proverbs 29:11 says, the fool uttereth all his mind. So I don't want to be a fool by, and trust me when I say this, I don't want to be a fool by just saying the first thing that comes to my mind, because listen, I can do all the networking. I can do all the eye rolling, because I told you how many sisters I got. I got 8. So I learned to spar with the best of them. And even though we don't cuss each other out no more, I can be very cynical. I can be very satirical, you know, at best, and I can hang with the best of them. But we still have to be very careful, you know, if we're going to build and shape life, because we never know who's watching us. At any given moment, you know, we don't want to give someone the impression that we're apoplectic, you know, because we can control our impulses. And I'm not saying that you're that type of individual, because I taught in the public school and I've taught in the Christian school. So when you say that, that's why I got tickled, because it was in the Christian school that I found out a whole lot of stuff, you know, a whole lot of, as my mom would say, fang language.
Yeah. And I think for me, this is, you know, and I'm glad we're having this conversation, because I think everybody's made valid points. So even though I may do things one way, I can certainly respect everybody's opinion, and that's just who I am, you know. So just because I say it or don't say it, I'm not going to admonish you for saying it or not saying it either. Now, what I will say though is, for me, and the reason that I still use it, for me, it's all about intent. All right, I know that when I say it, it's not, you know, meant to be racist. It's not meant to be anything, you know, inflammatory. And you know, but and for me personally, and it might just be me, but growing up, I'm 45 years old, so people were saying nigga since, you know, I was, you know, a toddler. So, and we never had the conversation in my community, in my household, saying don't say that word, or you know, you shouldn't say that. It's just something we said. For me personally, I don't think it became an issue until non-blacks felt that they can say it. When they started, you know, saying, well, because y'all can say it, I can say it. Well, no, that's not the case. So, I may never change my mind about this, because I'm like, I'm okay. If you black, I'm okay with you saying it. To be honest with you, that's how it is now. But like I said earlier, I have cousins who they're like, don't say that word around me, and I respect that. And I'm not going to use it around them, because I respect them. And you know, it's you know, if if I hear a white person saying it, or if I hear a Spanish person saying it, then we got an issue, because I you know what that word means. No one, whether they, correct me if I'm wrong, whether they're white, Hispanic, or any other nationality, nobody has a word that people call them that, you know, basically categorizes them in, you know, in one particular way. We got nigga, a nigger, or whatever. Like, okay, what you know, insulting word can we call a white person? What, cracker? That's not, you know, that's not like a, it's not like, you know, we just went around saying, oh, you cracker this, oh, you cracker that. Like it's, you know, and I don't, and the thing is, like, I don't use it you know, I wouldn't call them that, but the fact is like, you know, this is that one word for me that's the words we're talking about right now, nigga and bitch, they're off limits. Period. Unless you fall in that category in that particular instance, to me they're off limits.
I think, well, first of all, you know, if people in our community want to continue to use it, you know, that's on them. I'm not the person to judge anybody, right? You know, I just kind of share like fruit of thought, food for thought. I meant to say food for thought. But what I will say, I think it's all about the narrative. You know, like for an example, we know the word nigga is closely related to slavery, right? And that's the narrative in which we were taught. Unless you were back then and you experienced, um, you know, slavery, you know, you can only go based off the narrative or the stories that were provided to you through the educational system, or if some family member, right? So I want to start there first, family. So I had some older, you know, elders in my family, right, who lived to be, you know, 102, 100. And all those elders I ever came across, they always was like, David, we have Indian in our family. So it's kind of sent me on a journey. Follow along with me here because I'm not going to take long, right? So I began to try to find out more about my family history, and I was able to narrow it down to certain tribes. But then I came across some books, some different narratives. Some people may agree with these narratives, and some people may disagree with these narratives, right? But there was three books that really reshaped my mind and had me to kind of take a step back to begin to question things in some of the narratives in which we were taught. One book could be quite controversial to some, but I think it's really good for this topic. It's called White Cargo, right? If you haven't read it, you know, I suggest that you pick it up. Another book is called When Rocks Cry Out, right? I know we talked about made reference to the Bible, and you know, the author of that book will challenge your way of thinking by saying that, you know, those events that took place in the Bible happened here in Americas. And one of the things that they point out is that corn was indigenous to the Americas, and corn or maize is throughout the Bible, right? Gives you a different perspective, different thought, you know, another case of study. Then there's another book that directly is connected to King James, right? It's called the Negro Question Series, and more importantly is the series book number 6, right? And it talks about the 13 colonies being set up, but when they reference to King James, they reference to King James having melanated skin, and also King George of Georgia having melanated skin, and that the original slaves were either indentured servants or Caucasians that came over here that were kicked out of Scotland. So then begins to question yourself, the term nigger, who was it first assigned to? Because the first slaves, based on these particular narratives, was the other races, stimulating from, you know, our family with albinos, and, you know, if you want to get deeper into that, with leprosy. But I'm not here to try to teach a history lesson to convince anybody, right? But what I will say is that once you begin to invest in a different narrative, it makes you start questioning, well, where did we go wrong when we lost power to even allow ourselves to be able to be swapped, where a name that was assigned to someone else then gets reassigned to us, and then that causes so much pain for us, right? So narratives is where I probably would drive this conversation. What is the story that we want to tell ourselves as a community, whether we use these words or not use these words? I think at the end of the day, you know what I'm saying, are these words helping us rise above our current state? Or are these words help keeping us oppressed in our current state? You know, these are just ideas and thoughts I have based on some of the different literatures and different narratives in which I've come across that's challenged the status quo in which I was learned. And I think that's also helped me, you know, with being able to let go of some of these terms. That's just me. Me personally, not trying to tell anybody else what to do, because I still have some
Yeah.
homeboys that feel like, what up, nigga?
And what I'll and what I will say, because someone who's apparently a lot smarter than I am just brought something to my attention. So we know that you know, nigga is used in a derogatory manner for, like going back to slavery or whatever the case is, right? So talking about other like races and nationalities, the Spanish people, they have spics. For Asian people, they're called chinks. Mexicans, they're called wetbacks. Jews are called kikes. And Italians are called guido. But the difference is with the Spanish, the Asian, the Mexican, the Jewish, and the Italians, they don't use those terms towards each other, but we do. So I guess that was, to me, that was that was rather enlightening because I've never seen two Mexicans together saying, "Hey, what's up, my wetback?" Like you know what I mean. So it's that, to me, that's very enlightening. So it's that's my takeaway for the night. And speaking of takeaways, what I want to do is because again, this has been a great conversation. I want each of you to give the audience rather a takeaway and something last thing you want to leave them with. And D Rich, since you already had the floor, we're gonna go ahead and start with you.
I think my comment. That was it, man. Just ask yourself what story do you want to tell yourself. That's more impactful than I think we really know because of a life coaching term. We talk about subconscious programming. What narrative do you want to invest in, and invest in that. And if that narrative is saying that, hey, I want to continue to use said words, then use them. Use them proudly. Set boundaries. And if that narrative says, hey, you know what, I'm not going to use these words because, just like Hook said, the other nationalities don't use these terms. And why are we? To each his own. Just make sure whatever path that you travel, carry your rod and your staff because you're going to need it.
Yes, sir. All right, brother Edge.
Well, as we culminate this discussion, we must remember that connotation versus denotation. Denotation is what it is. Connotation is what you make it. Let's make sure that if we understand who we are and we understand that we're here for a reason, let's make sure that the impression that I leave on the world is an impression of building and touching the next generation. I don't want to leave a legacy that that I've torn down everything that I've put my hands to. I think D. Rich said some very powerful things, and I would love to talk to him on even subsequently after this discourse tonight, because there are some elements of truth with what he shared, and if we allow people to take truth and to bend it from its original intent or purpose, it has become perverted. And a lot of what we are experiencing and have experienced as a people has come through perversion. And it is up for us to put it back in its rightful place. The psalmist makes this statement, I believe it's in Psalm 80. He makes this statement that the foundations of the earth are out of course. So it is up for us to make sure that we as individuals, I was right, 82 and 5, that all the foundations of the earth are out of course. It is up for us to do what is right and do what is proper to make sure that we are aligning things as they should be. And so with that, I say, God bless you all. Just make sure you all be safe out here. This pandemic is not over. Don't let people make this thing a political thing, but please make sure you're keeping yourself safe. God bless you.
Absolutely. Appreciate you. All right, brother Chambers.
You know what? I really don't. I think the one takeaway I leave with tonight is that this is a conversation we could have every week, and we still come to no resolution. Just because it's the spaces in which we live, in which we work, in which we love, and those words are okay in some of those spaces, and not okay in others. And so we just can't keep drawing lines in the sand. And yes, we can hold each other accountable. Yes, we can make conscious decisions about which words we are going to say and which ones we're not. But yet it still comes down to how do you take your personal choice and impact the entire culture? And that is the thing I really do take away is that just in my thought processes, again, we could talk every week for years, decades. Um, and so we just have to learn to live with it and get those around us to respect our opinions about the word. And that's it.
Good stuff. LaShawn?
I think the one thing that I'll take away tonight is just rethinking my use of at least the B word. And knowing that if it's not something that I would want said to me, then maybe I shouldn't use it under any circumstances. And I mean, that goes for any word, but I just feel like it's really hard and difficult to figure out if it's okay. It's only like, it can only be like an individual choice of if it's okay or not. There are just too many things that go into making decisions to use words and how you're raised and your environment and everything else. So I just want to kind of be conscious of how I use words and how they make me feel and how what my intentions are when I use them towards other people.
Absolutely. All right, Vicky, bring us on.
One takeaway that I did have is that we have been having this conversation for years and years. I don't think it's gonna get solved, and I think everyone is going to have their own opinions about it. So I think it is really important to kind of establish with yourself your personal decision and how you feel about it, because sometimes it's not what they call you, it's how you respond or what you choose to respond to. So however you feel about it, just make sure that anyone who's around you knows your expectations and things like that. So
All right, definitely. I appreciate you. And this has been a great conversation, man. It's and like Brother Timber said, this is something we can talk about probably every week, to be honest with you. And I know for me personally, I appreciate everybody's commentary because it has given me a lot to think about, and my use, or in most cases, my misuse of the word. So definitely. And D Rich, I appreciate you because every single time we meet up, it's like you give me some reading material. So thanks for the thanks for the information there. And again, we do this the final hour. This is episode 4. Episode 5 is going to air September 9th, Thursday, September 9th. We do this the second Thursday of each month. And Brother Chambers, we're going to get together and find out exactly what we'll be discussing next. I know you got some ideas from Brother Edge there. So, but anytime you guys want to come back on, we'll be happy to have you. We talk about pretty much everything. So we really want to engage and really the main thing here is like no matter what conversation we engage in, we really want to educate, and we also want to just give you something to think about, or rather rethink. So again, I appreciate you guys greatly. For the viewers, I appreciate you as well. Make sure you continue to share. Make sure you like the Alpha Psi Lambda Facebook page as well. And again, we'll be seeing you again in a month. So until next time, we'll see you.